Let's pick things up there for tonight's State Line Defense. Joining me, John Donnelly, senior writer and defense reporter for CQ Roll Call and editor of Executive Briefing Defense. John, now that Crimea has voted to join Russia, what happens next in the region?
Well, the ball is basically in Russia's court at this point. The government in Moscow is expected, maybe even as soon as this week, to basically agree to formally do this annexation of Crimea. And so, and then they will have to actually implement that, which will not happen overnight. So the reason I mention all that is because there may be, if you're an optimist, some opportunities for off-ramps for Vladimir Putin should he decide to back off in some way. He may be able to do so down the road a little bit.
The U.S. and other world powers have called the vote illegal. Ukraine says it will not recognize Crimea's decision. What are the options for the new Ukrainian government?
Well, they don't have a lot of very good options. Basically, they're in a military vice right now. Not only are Russian troops and pro-Russian militias occupying Crimea, but also Russian troops are, by the thousands, are amassing along Russia's border with the eastern part of Ukraine, where most Russian-speaking people live. So they are in pretty difficult situation. They are no military match for Russia. To me, the biggest risk here is that Ukraine does respond in some way militarily. They have called up about 40,000 reservists and guardsmen. Remember, their troops in Crimea are on base, surrounded by Russians. So, you know, should Ukrainian pride really raise up strongly, there's a possibility that there could be some serious violence. And then what happens? Then you might see Russian reaction. Then it'll be harder for the West to kind of ignore this.
Now, at the same time, Ukraine has a lot of regions that feel that they're a part of Russia. Does this vote open the door for more areas to secede?
I would say so, because there may be movements from within those areas to hold similar votes. And then there's also the very real risk of Russia doing something militarily in that eastern part of Ukraine. As I mentioned, they're massed along the border. And you also hear some rather alarming rhetoric from Vladimir Putin regarding needing to protect Russian-speaking people throughout Ukraine, not just in Crimea. That's a little bit of a hint that he stands ready, if he believes it's necessary, to take military steps in order to, quote-unquote, protect those populations, even though there haven't been any real threats to speak of to those people.
It's so ironic they're portraying us and the West as Nazis. When you see the flyers and the things that are on the phone poles in the Ukraine and Crimea, they've got us looking like Hitler. It's so totally different from what we're used to.
Well, I mean, you know, this idea of protecting native populations in nearby countries is definitely a throwback to Hitler.
Right.
I mean, that was what happened in Austria. The Anschluss, the Lebensraum was their term, room to the east, and that was the pretext back then too. It's a direct echo.
Now, John, the U.S. has imposed sanctions on Russian officials who have a lot of money and investments in other countries. What other options does Obama have?
Well, yeah, we've done some sanctions against, I think, 7 officials, and the European Union also took steps against, I think, 21. Some of those people overlap between the two lists. Obama, those are a series of steps that he will take, a series of sanctions. This is just the beginning. He didn't want to shoot all his rounds on the first go-round. So that's the first step, is continuing to put the pressure on there. They said, the White House said today, they didn't rule out doing sanctions against Vladimir Putin himself. And then, of course, there's the option of providing arms to Ukraine, which a number of members of Congress, John McCain and Dick Durbin, to name a couple,
right,
have advocated. Now, again, Ukraine's no match for Russia, so this would be largely a symbolic move to help them out with armaments.
So much of this boils down to Vladimir Putin's obsession with restoring the glory days of the Soviet Union. Why should he respond to the values and demands of the West? You talked about giving him an off-ramp. He doesn't need an off-ramp. Everybody loves him over there, it seems, right?
Well, he doesn't in Russia, and presumably he's gaining plaudits over there for this kind of thing, at least among a substantial part of the population, although they had thousands of people in the street a couple days ago protesting this, which was really interesting. But I think Putin is going to react to this situation according to his perception of costs and benefits, just like pretty much every other rational world leader. And so right now it seems as if he sees the benefits outweighing the costs from his perspective. Now, should sanctions increase a bit more, maybe he'll reconsider that. I see, to the degree he backs down, and we may just have to accept this as a fait accompli, but if he is to back down at all, I have a feeling it won't be for a little while. It won't be until the world takes its attention off of this situation. While everyone's paying attention, I can't see him having a face-saving way to reverse what he has started.
Good point. John Donnelly, editor of Executive Briefing Defense. Thanks, John.